How's it going, guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be looking at an article by Motor Trend actually comparing head-to-head the new Chevy Corvette Z06 to a Lamborghini Huracan Technica, as well as another new McLaren model. But before we get into today's video, definitely be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe down below if you guys are new to the channel. If you've already been subscribed, definitely be sure to click that little bell icon down below. All that stuff is absolutely free and helps me out a ton as a smaller car channel here on YouTube that posts new content daily. But anyways, getting into today's video, obviously an entity like Motor Trend in the car world is going to get their hands on these new cars almost immediately, and they did a couple of real-world tests literally comparing the new Z06 to, a couple other supercars. Now, the reason why I'm making a video about it and the reason why I think that it's so important is because, number one, I've already made a few videos now talking about the new Z06 in like the past month or so, and I think that it's so important that this comparison kind of gets a little bit more publicity, or like gets shown in like a little bit more light, because I truly believe now that how advanced the Z06 Corvette is, I think that it should certainly be considered a supercar. A lot of people were on the fence about the C7 Z06, whether to truly consider it a supercar or not, and I actually had the privilege to review a C7 Z06 on the channel. Now, obviously, I haven't had my chance to review like a C8 Z06 yet, because, well, they just like came out for sale, so they're just like starting to get on the road, the first few examples of them, but hopefully in the future I will be. And today we're going to be looking again at the real world tests that Motor Trend actually did. We're going to be looking at acceleration, braking, as well as how many G's that these things can handle on the skid pad. So without further ado, guys, getting right into it today. Here we can see the Z06 versus the new Huracan Technica, and then the 765 LT. I don't believe I said the McLaren model before, and I think I might have just said Huracan before, but it is the new Huracan Technica, which I actually did briefly see at the New York Auto Show. Amazing new car from Lamborghini, but the American, actually, believe it or not, the Z06 does really well when it comes to this comparison. So this is like this whole like little intro here. They're talking about the, I guess, prestige and stuff of brands like McLaren and Lamborghini compared to Chevy. I don't know really what they're getting at there, but anyways, moving on to kind of like the nitty and gritty. Here is essentially where the Z06 completely changes from the regular Corvette Stingray C8 or the C8 Z51. The 5.5 liter naturally aspirated flat plane crank V8. It makes 670 horsepower and revs to a crazy 8,400 RPMs. And that is, I have to say, probably the best thing. Well, it is the best thing about the Z06, and it is the main like difference maker really when it comes to comparing the Z06 to like a regular Corvette Stingray of the C8 generation, because I had a chance to review I think it was an LT2 Corvette last summer, and it was alright. Like, it was cool. I really like the design and the body style of the C8, but I have to say, like, driving a car powered by that 6.2 liter pushrod cam, regular, like, I guess, cross-plane crank V8 that you'd see in a normal, like, American muscle car, it just felt weird, because it looks like it looked like an exotic, but it almost felt like, it still felt like a muscle car. Yes, even though it was more balanced and it was mid-engine, but it was a little bit weird. Like, you were expecting a little bit higher of RPM, or a little bit higher of red line, I should say. And definitely a little bit different when it comes to the exhaust tone. It literally felt like you were driving, like, I don't know, a Camaro SS or something like that. But anyways, moving on, they also talk about the new transmission in the Z06. Now, yes, the Z06 are only offered in automatics, but they do have a dual clutch automatic transmission, so the shifts are extremely fast, and I think it's a different transmission than in the Corvette Stingray, although it may very well be the same. So comment down below if I'm incorrect. Please let me know. I do appreciate the constructive criticism. Goes on and talks about the chassis, the aero, and all the different carbon fiber on the Z06, and how, you know, it costs a ridiculous amount, because let's be real, it does. But this right here is what I'm actually making this video for. So we have the first trial, the acceleration, then braking, and then the turning, which is essentially the skid plate, how much G's the cars can pull. And then it gives like a quick little summary, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But when it comes to acceleration, the Lamborghini and the Corvette were able to actually do launch control right around 4,500 RPMs, while the McLaren, considering that it is more torqueier, was only able to do the launch control at like 3,000 RPMs. That is all set from the factory by the manufacturer to kind of ideal the 0 to 60 time with the least amount of wheel spin or anything like that. But the Corvette's gearing is definitely a little bit steeper than the McLaren and the Lamborghini, so it actually came in with the 0 to 60 time above both of them by a tenth at 2.8 seconds. So I'm assuming that the McLaren and the Lamborghini Technica were able to do a 0 to 60 time at 2.9 or around like 3.0 seconds. So that still is blisteringly fast. Now when it comes to the quarter mile time, unfortunately the Huracan is 0.2 seconds ahead. The McLaren is actually a half a second ahead. And here are the different trap speeds. The McLaren reached 142.6 miles per hour, the Lambo 134.5, and then the Chevy just at 128.2. So essentially when it comes to 0 to 60 time, the Corvette's got them all beat out. But that steeper gearing does kind of bite it in the ass when it comes to like 80 miles per hour past that, because that is when those other cars truly do shine. So it still does have a pretty high top speed. I think the top speed for the new Z06 should be around like 180 or 170 if I'm not mistaken, maybe even a little bit higher. But you know, unfortunately it is kind of held back when it comes to like that steeper gearing. Now moving on to the braking, believe it or not, pretty much all of the cars were essentially the same. They all stopped within the 93 to 96 feet mark. Now that is going from like 60 miles per hour to 0, so they're all pretty much the same there. But now moving on to like 100 miles per hour to 0, the Corvette actually just stopped in 252 feet, which was 2 feet shorter than the McLaren, and actually 6 feet better than the Lamborghini. So kind of, I guess, the opposite story when you look at the acceleration versus the braking. They're all pretty much the same when it comes to 0 to 60 or 60 to 0. But in the quarter mile, the Lamborghini and the McLaren are faster. And then in like the 100 to 0 braking, the Corvette's actually faster than both of them by a significant margin. Well, not really a significant margin. I mean, it's just a couple feet better than the McLaren for one, but still, I mean, it still is pretty good. And in a life or death or like an accident situation, a couple feet could be the difference of you totaling your new Z06 or walking away completely unscathed. Now moving on to the final trial that Motor Trend actually did in this article, the turning. So the lateral grip, this is essentially they put the car on a skid pad, they see how much G's it could pull before breaking loose. And believe it or not, the Corvette was able to pull 1.16 lateral G's, which was better than both of the other cars, which is pretty awesome. Well, actually the McLaren did narrowly beat it out with 1.17 G's. However, the Lamborghini lagged behind both of them by quite a decent margin, coming in at just 0.94 G's. So now moving on, pretty much they kind of talk about their overall summaries of the cars, but this is kind of what I wanted to highlight. This is their ranking. This is right from Motor Trend. I can't really comment on it because, again, I didn't drive any of these cars at all, so I can't give you my own personal opinion when it comes to their feel on the road. But they rated the McLaren as number 1, but more importantly at number 2, actually beating out the Huracan Technica, we do have the Z06. Now, yes, they did test out a Z07 package, but to be honest, not too much is different with the Z07 package compared to just a base model Z06. But here are their pros. It's got approachable supercar dynamics, exotic engine, Corvette comfort, which I do have to say, I don't think that the seats are going to be different in the Z06 compared to the regular Stingray. But driving in the regular Stingray, the LT2 or whatever it was that I drove in last year, it was rather comfortable. I really like the, interior design with the whole like separation of the driver and the passenger, but the seats weren't like full-blown bucket seats. They weren't uncomfortable to get in and out of. They were really good quality leather. Unfortunately, the main kind of con and issue that I had with the interior of at least the regular LT2 is that there was just plastic everywhere, whereas in the Z06 all that plastic is substituted with carbon fiber. So there you go. I have no doubt that if I were to ever drive a Z06, I really fall in love with the interior. But moving on to the cons from the I guess representatives at Motor Trend: wooden brake feel, which I guess that just means that the brake is a little bit mushier than it should be. Study hall styling, which I don't know what they're getting at there. I am completely in love when it comes to the C8 styling in general, whether it's a Z06 or a base C8, and it could lose 200 pounds, which I don't have a doubt. I'm sure that Chevy, probably messed up somewhere and they could have made the car lighter than what it is. That's not really a rip on Chevy or anything, but they've definitely tried to cut corners when it comes to the regular C8, and that's one thing that I did notice in the review, and I'm all for that if you're going to be selling the car for the advertised MSRP of around, I guess, 65,000 or like 70,000. But when you're trying to get like over 100 grand for regular Corvette Stingrays C8s, and then close to like 200 grand for like the Z06, I don't like the whole idea of cutting some corners when it comes to Chevy, but that's just my own opinion. Let me know what your guys' thoughts and opinions of this new C8 Z06 down in the comments below. After everything is said and done, I still think that it's a phenomenal car. I think that it truly should be considered as a supercar. In my own opinion, I think even the C7 Z06 is a supercar, I guess you could say, with the C6 Z06 with that 7-liter LS7 being like the last true muscle car Z06, I guess. But the Corvette's always been like a sports car rather than a muscle car, and I truly do think that this new generation, with it being mid-engine and with it having such an exotic design, I definitely like the direction that Chevy is heading in with the Corvette brand. And I don't really like the new like electric SUV that they said that they're teasing with the Corvette brand, but that's a whole nother story. But if you stuck to the end of today's video, definitely be sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff that I said before. Again, it really does help me out a lot. Also, thank you guys so much for your time. I really, truly do appreciate it. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you guys in the next one. If you enjoyed today's video, click on either of these links right here to watch a similar video from this channel, or click on the little circle link right there to actually subscribe to the channel. It's absolutely free. I do appreciate all the support, but thank you for sticking to the end of this video, and I hope you have a fantastic day.